thank you everyone for being on the line or tuning in later. Welcome to Citizens Climate University. It's a weekly webinar program of Citizens Climate Lobbies that provides CCL supporters like you and I with access to in-depth training opportunities on topics related to climate change and effective climate advocacy. I'm your host, Brett Cease, and tonight's excellent topic is cultural dynamics, reaching out to diverse communities. Have you ever wanted to move outside of your own comfort zone to learn about the diversity of communities in your own town? Well, you're in luck tonight because we're going to be joined by Karina Ramirez, CCL's diversity coordinator, in a webinar geared at helping your chapter use strategies and tools to expand your chapter's diversity footprint and represent a more complete array of your local community's constituency. At this point, let me have the chance to warmly introduce our speaker tonight, the wonderful Karina Ramirez. Karina is CCL's diversity coordinator as well as the team lead for the Spanish language action team. Karina was born in Ecuador and has been a journalist. She's also the co-founder of CCL's Palm Beaches chapter down in Florida and is the diversity coordinator as well as a trained climate reality leader. Goals for tonight's attendees are fourfold. After attending, hopefully everyone should be able to utilize approaches to explore your own local community's diversity, prepare a list of organizations to reach out to based on your goals, follow recommendations from this webinar and CCL's diversity outreach team and how to best reach out to local groups, and also know where to report your findings so that others can learn from them and really benefit from this collective wisdom as we continue to grow in this important area of emphasis. Tonight's agenda is really straightforward. It's just sixfold. What we're going to have a chance to do is jump into finding a little bit of background about the Spanish language team as a context for larger diversity outreach. And then from there, Karina is going to go through how to use specific census data available to everyone to really drill down into finding out more about your local community's opportunities, and then give some practical advice on how to conduct effective outreach to local organizations, review some key considerations to keep in mind while diversifying your local group. We're going to do a quick review of some of the Spanish language resources as well as where to find additional equivalents in other diversity cultures and areas. And the floor is yours. Thanks again for being here tonight and joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this webinar tonight. When I first joined CCL, this is the first comment that I provided, at least of Sparks, about why I felt that that we should get more involved, particularly for my Latino community. And it says, it's not that Latinos don't care about climate change. Advocates and organizations have not really properly explained to them and in their language how climate change can impact their community and why they need to be involved in this form of, of advocacy. And I cold-heartedly believe this, which is why I decided to stay with CCL. Very interesting. I came across them last year, and like everybody else that had joined us, as you can see, we got immediately hooked. And I wanted to be able to contribute, and my area was particularly this, reaching out to my Latino communities. Oh, so let me tell you now a little bit about the Spanish language action team. We do a lot of work of inside our respective chapters. Primarily when we started doing a lot of the translations for the CCL website. We've also done chapter web pages if some chapters have requested them. We do press releases and we send out op-eds. We also created a glossary for ourselves because a lot of the terminology that dealt with CCL particular work is very new to us. So we wanted to make sure that as we reached out to our different communities throughout the country, that the language was consistent. And also we were very aware that not all Spanish language is the same throughout the country. And that was the other reason. We wanted to make sure that whatever we used was a standard Spanish. So that had really helped us when it comes to translating and doing social media posts and things of the sort. In our team as well, we also welcome new volunteers, either nationally or internationally. And right now we're moving into going out, which is what I'm asking anybody to do. We've done the basics, which is having a translation, and now we want to be inside our communities. So we want to be visible. I'm suggesting that people go to tabling events, to participate in local forums, and as Brett was mentioning, provide a film screening. I'm starting one with my local chapter because I've never seen one in Spanish. I haven't seen one in my community, and I figured, okay, we don't have one. Might as well just be the first one to start one. So we'll see how that's going to go. And also help the chapters if they have any other need that comes across. I wanted to share with you a couple of numbers when it comes to the teams. I figured, this would be easy for us, a reminder. We have had 79 members joined us since we created the Spanish language form. Just like you have members that joined in English, we created one in Spanish last fall. And in that list, we've had at least the majority of them have been primarily from Latin America, members that have joined us, but we also have members from across the state, which also made me really happy to see that they were only Spanish-speaking people that were looking for information that were living in the US. Our breakthrough this year so far has been that we got 153 people to write to their elected officials and send their information to them in Spanish. We also didn't have that before. It's also made possible because the team got together and started to translate that form. And now it's available and anyone can use it. And our team overall, we have 12 active members and plus other joining. I think I got a request for 2 more, but it's nice to see. What I'm asking the chapters is to go out and find yourself someone that could come and join our team. You don't have to speak Spanish. We conduct our meetings in English, and that is some of our members right there. They come from different parts of the country, Texas, California, Colorado, Florida, New Jersey, and of course, CCL Panama, Tammy, who lives in the Massachusetts area. And she provides a lot of information for some of the chapters up there to come and join. But as I was saying, we just wanted someone to come and join us so that you can learn what we're doing and we can provide you the materials that you need when you're particularly trying to reach out to Spanish language communities. And why is it that you would want to do this? One of the things that I did before I joined CCL, I was actually in the hunt to try to find organizations that were doing work inside my communities. And I found this great study that was provided to me by some CCLers and some people that knew that I was hunting for information that could help me understand why this is important. We know, and the data is confirmed, 3 in 4 Latinos, they want the corporations and industries, citizens themselves, the president, the US Congress to do more to address global warming. So you have your audience there. A majority are also willing to join a campaign to convince elected officials to take action to reduce global warming. And that includes 61% of Spanish language Latinos, which is, again, a community that I want you to be very much aware of. They're out there. We just have to go and find them. This is the study that was published by Yale Climate Communications. It is a source that does all different kinds of outreach. They also do surveys in English about how people are feeling. What are the thoughts and ideas regarding climate change? So they published a study last fall. And prior to them, there was actually another group that had published data related to Latinos. I actually thought for a while that there wasn't any data out there, but they're the ones that I feel more comfortable using. This is the key fact, and this is another reason why I decided to stick around and see what I could contribute in this work. 7 in 10 Latinos have never been contacted by an organization working to reduce climate change. And I found that incredibly, at first I was a little bit shocked. I was like, really? How can you not come and reach out to us? We are among, other groups like African Americans, very vulnerable to anything that has to deal with climate situations. I mean, you see it with the hurricanes that have happened in different situations. And I couldn't believe that the organizations that do this kind of work wouldn't go out and talk to our members and make them with my overall goal to be part of this national conversation. And of course, diversity, the overall discussion on why you're here tonight. Okay. And I was thinking about this as I was putting this presentation together, what it means to be diverse, right? I am particularly the person that is leading the Spanish language team, but that doesn't mean that I am restricted to that, right? When we're thinking of diversity overall, we're talking about embracing all kinds of differences. And this is something that I saw, and I was like, I love the idea that it's just, it's more than just who we know around us, right? We're talking about diversity of not only race and ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, physical abilities, religion, political beliefs, ideologies. I will include education. I would also include working versus retired. I would include students, right? We also have an outreach team that's particularly reaching out to the student population. So when we talk about diversity, I want you to think overall of what we don't have in our respective chapters now, and what would be our wish to have in the future. For me, particularly because I am leading the Spanish language team, it is to include more Latinos, again, in the national conversation related to this topic. Every community is different. Some of the things I learned, and this is what I gather from my years of reporting in different communities, you have to be present. Not enough just to, attend one meeting from Asian Chamber, if we're going to pick one, right? But find out what other events they're doing. A lot of our communities that you're going to find, and as you already know, it's like every other group, right? If you're not there, it's almost like the conversation doesn't take place and it doesn't happen. I remember in my reporting days, my community will get extremely hurt if I have gone to one event and during 1 month and I didn't show up to another one the second month. It's almost like, okay, how are we going to create that relationship if you don't show up? I think it's important to create, exactly, we're creating a relationship. And that relationship cannot take place by you showing up once, right? And I can tell you this, it can be extremely helpful. And this is why I say you need to build that relationship with at least one person from that organization or that cultural community group or community center, because that person is going to be the one that's going to connect you with the other people. Because a lot of things that I see in my community is, first they give you, I've gone to places where they give you the look like, what are you doing here? But once they see me talking to one of their key officials, or maybe I became friends with someone who volunteers constantly at that organization, that person introduced me to another person or another group, and it made it easier for me to interact with them. So that's why I say, I want you to go out. I want you to go and start connecting with this group. Send an email. If the email doesn't work, make a phone call. If the phone call doesn't work, we show up in person. A lot of the things that I actually do, I show up in person because my community doesn't really respond to emails. So I go and I was like, okay, hi, I'm Karina, and I just, wanted to meet someone that I can provide information. And that is the first thing I do. I just provide information and I provide the flyer. And then from there on, he's like, oh, well, tell me what you do. And then that was actually what led to me having now this Spanish film screening that I'm going to do, because I had met this person once, and to tell you, I met her 4 months ago. And then I called her when I thought of this idea, and she was like, yeah, I remember you. I was like, yeah, I want to talk to you further about what you're doing. And then I told her about this film screening, and her feedback was, we've never had that before. We never had anyone come to talk to us about any of those issues. I am happy to help you with whoever you want to connect with. And she actually referred me to 2 other organizations. She was like, here's their name, and tell them that I send them to you. Look at that. Again, we're building relationships. Something to think about. I was reading a couple of articles about how people view diversity. And this is an article by Jacqueline Patterson, if you haven't come across her. She is the director of the NAACP Environmental and Climate Justice Program. I met her once. She was actually here in my town, and I attended a climate talk. And we had a discussion about, what what we're seeing. And this is something that really stood to me as I was reading this material. Engage in a process that fosters institution-wide commitment to anti-oppression and racism. As recruitment occurs and people of color join the organization, ensure that there are checkpoints along the way to ensure that the person is being heard and supported, as well as encouraging and supporting caution by people of color between the organization and with other organizations for peer support, and exchange lessons on best practices in addressing challenges and optimizing gains. I happen to think that CCL is doing that. I took it as it was a reward to me to be able to find that once I joined CCL that I had a home and a family of people that were really interested in having my voice here. And I can tell you I have gone to other organizations before and that has not been the culture, and I immediately left. Which is why I'm suggesting, not only are we going to go out and reach out to diverse communities, but we also want to get their feedback, how they're feeling about their meeting. Is there anything that we can do to not only encourage them to do the work that we're asking them to do, but also have them feel that this is a home that they can come to, and that you're going to be able to provide not only the feedback and information they need, but they're going to be able to actually talk to you.
I love that, Karina. One other thing I think really connects very powerfully back to your earlier observation and the quote from Jackie Patterson is another resource that the NAACP actually came out with at the Global Climate Action Summit just a couple of weeks ago. It's a database specifically for people of color in the environmental justice and climate justice community. And it's self-described as a one-stop site for speakers, consultants, potential hires, board members, advisors, committee members, community members from throughout the country. And as we all know, there are so many people of color out there engaging on environmental and climate justice. And this database, I think, is another really helpful way that we wanted to highlight tonight. If your local community is looking to spotlight somebody for a local speaker, or to build a connection and a relationship, long-term investment like you've been talking about, Karina, this is an excellent way where you can dig into their database on not only environmental and climate justice professionals, but on folks that are related to other related skills and interests that are intersectional to the climate movement. And what the website says is one is fully guaranteed to find someone who can meet whatever they have as a need, or find someone who knows someone, as you just highlighted, who can meet those needs too. So I think that's a really key resource that we really are wanting all groups to really think about as they continue to build out their ongoing local and statewide or regional outreach.
So in going back to the Latino community, which is my expertise, my bread and butter, I spent 3 years as a journalist, as Brett mentioned, working inside Spanish language communities. And this is what I found. 57.5 million Latinos live in the US. That's the overall number. My community is the largest ethnic and racial majority that we have right now across the country. Then you have the breakdown of the other countries from El Salvador, Dominican, Puerto Rico, Cuban, Guatemalan. I am particularly from Ecuador. We're super, super tiny, but that doesn't mean that we are not part of this overall community. So when you think about, oh my God, the group that I can reach out to, this is one of them. And there are many. There's also African Americans, and we have the Asian community, and we have people of European descent that are spread across this country. But from my particular, I want you to think of it as a community that, again, not a lot of people have reached out to. They don't really know anything about CCL. I can tell you because I have spoken to them here. And as I speak to other team members, we find that they are actually, they're not only intrigued by the work that we do, but they're more than willing to come and join and find out how they can provide not even an inch of their time to be able to help out. So I'm just, want to put it out there as an information source. So step one, I'm going to give you a couple of just short steps on what you can do in order to find out what the breakdown is in your community. In my town in West Palm Beach, 23% of my community is Latino. But if you see in this graphic, I have a large African-American community that I'm also reaching out to. So it's not completely alone. I mean, I have the majority of the population here is Anglo, but I have other communities that I can reach out in the future. And this is why I want you to go to the census and look for the following table. The table that I'm particularly asking you to look for is B03001. And that is particularly if you want to actually target the Latino community. When you go to Fact Finder, which is the database that the census has, that can provide you a whole bunch of demographics. I mean, think of it as there. They can provide you just a general list of just what the breakdown is in your community, what the economic and the education is of your community. But that table in particular will give you the breakdown of the Latino origin. And the reason I ask for that one in particular, when it comes to our group, is because we are diverse. Just like we have a whole bunch of Americans that come from different countries, my Latino community is also diverse. We come from Mexico and Colombia and Venezuela, and you can find that by going to this table. Think of it as, I'm gonna find out what my community makeup is, and this is one way to go and find. And this table actually helped me determine the types of groups that I was gonna target in my town. I can tell you that in my town, I have a large Guatemalan community that I didn't know about. They have a local consulate here. I found that there's a Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce that I didn't know about. And it also helped me connect myself with community centers. I went to the local library and got in touch with someone there who actually I met through just local networking. And she was also had a conversation here. And she's like, yeah, it's a great idea to look at the census, and she recommended me to other people. Again, it's a way to be able to just look at the breakdown of what your community is and then get an idea where you can go next. So here are some just two groups that I wanted to highlight, a couple of groups. In the Latino community, one of them is LULAC. LULAC is the League of United Latin American Citizens. They are by far one of the largest and oldest Hispanic organization in the US. You can go to their website and find their LULAC councils. There are really at least one or two or three councils located in a town. And I used to live in Dallas, and in the Dallas area, they had at least 3 councils. And there were 2 for adults and 1 for students. And I only found this out because I did the search and they came up. Another organization to target is the local chapter of the NAACP. The local churches. Cultural centers. Yes, cultural centers are actually really, really big and helpful. The Guatemalan community here in my town has a cultural center for them. And I've actually have a meeting that I will soon have with them because they provide workshops on how to get the GED started. But a lot of these cultural centers don't really have climate change presentations or information that's provided to them. So you can be the first. You can go as a CCLer and be like, yeah, I want to provide general information about climate change. And through that conversation, start talking about the work that we're doing. The other good source for us, and I think this is vital for just all kinds of organizations, all kind of outreach that we want to use, is the local library. I'm telling you, the local library is the reason why I'm doing the film screening. Again, someone I met in the community, someone who told me that at one particular library, a lot of my Latino community meets and they have programs, and I went and I got their calendar for Hispanic Heritage Month that we're actually in right now. And she connected me. So I'm just following along and providing the information there. I want to think that I am not asking you to do anything new that we're not doing in CCL. I want you to apply your CCL skills. All communities, I want to say, particularly my community, I want to think that we're extremely sociable and interested in learning. We're not going to say no. We might be a little bit apprehensive at first. We're going to be like, okay, why are you coming here? What is it that you want from me? It could possibly be one of the first questions. But as you get the conversation going, you're going to see that the responses, at least that I have given, that I have been given is no one have ever talked to us about this. And that can generate a whole bunch of conversations. Yep, exactly. I'm reading the comments as I'm doing the presentation. So I want you to go and arrange a meeting or attend a local event, get yourself involved in that community. A lot of our organizations have monthly networkers. There's environmental group meetings in your town. I want you to tell them about our Spanish initiative, what we're trying to do. Invite them to visit our website, climavivible.org. When we get to the point of the presentation of the Spanish resources, I'll explain to you how you can use that. And connect with at least one potential member, because like everything else that we do in CCL, you want to have that contact, right? And that doesn't always have to be the president. It can just be someone that is volunteering at that center, at that cultural community place, or at that local consulate that you find. But you want to be able to have at least one person that you can interact with, and then that way you get yourself known inside that community. The words of caution, and this is something I like to give as a suggestion because I saw it when I was reporting, especially inside Latino communities. My community is very interesting in how they present and express themselves. Right now, my community is going through sort of a cultural change in how they describe themselves. So if you ever see this come up, the word Latinx has been sort of spread throughout a lot of the media. And you're gonna find a lot of communities of Latinos describe themselves as Latinx. And it's very interesting on when they do that. I'll explain that to you in a second. I want you to ask them how they best go and they describe themselves, because that way, you know, the beginning, you know, how that community wants to address themselves. I particularly address myself as a Latina. That's how I describe myself. I don't describe myself as a Hispanic, and I don't describe myself as a Latinx. I just can't connect. So the best way to find this out is to ask this question: what is your cultural background? And the cultural background, and I did this while I was reporting in Dallas, reporting both in Spanish and English, can generate a whole bunch of answers. At one point, I interviewed a guy who I found out was half Puerto Rican and half Asian by just asking this question. And we had the best interview and the best conversation by just asking that question instead of asking where you're from.
This is Debbie. Thanks, Karina. I want people to also be cautious of, don't be satisfied when you get like one person of color and say, oh, okay, you're in charge of diversity, right? Because they may be interested in, you know, labor or business or something. Don't assume that just because they're the person of color that their job is now diversity. So you're gonna have to get several people, and then hopefully one of them will be interested. So I wanted to bring up that right here, Karina was saying, what is your cultural background, as a good way to talk to and ask a Latino person how they self-identify. If you're talking to a young Asian American person, I would caution you to leave that for a later part of the conversation, because it runs into the problems for Asian Americans. They're perpetual foreigners is what we say. So, you know, some Asian Americans have been here since the 1850s. There's a very well-known Asian comic book writer who has, you know, his family's been here longer than, you know, the president. So that's maybe a conversation to have, you know, later on after you get to know, again, their interests outside of ethnicity. Because when you ask that question, you're telling that person the first thing you see about them is the fact that they're not white.
That's exactly it. Mm-hmm. And step 4, we want you to report to us. And the reason I ask this is because we are fairly new. We are a fairly new group, like many of the other action teams that you see there. We have 42 action teams inside CCL. And everybody's trying different things. And I want us to help each other out. So maybe you learned something interesting or something new that happens in your chapter that maybe other chapters want to replicate. Like right now, I'm telling my action team, I'm going to try out this Spanish film screening on Monday, on October 1st, and I'm going to report to them. And if it goes well, which I really hope we do, wish me luck, I want to have that replicated in other chapters. So it's very important for me, for you to share with us what you're learning, what thoughts you're getting from people. I can tell you right now, we translated a lot of material that we have inside CCL, and I still have people that come and join us and they say, you need more help with the translation. But that's because of wherever that person is in a different section of the country, that maybe it's going to use different wording than the material that we have. And that is why I want you to share what you're learning so that we know. Here's some of the Spanish language resources that we have available for you right now. If you go to the community site, you're going to find under resources on the left-hand side, there is, it actually has a link to Spanish language resources right there. We make sure that in that page, we put the Spanish wording of every single material that has been translated, and you also have the English version so that you could see it. I particularly want to point out that we have 2 brochures that are written in Spanish. Those are brochures are the latest CCL brochure. We translated them, but we have 2 versions because there's certain wording that for us as a team worked well in our Latin American countries, since we have chapters in Colombia, in Mexico, Panama, and now Argentina. So we needed to have the brochure tailored to those chapters so that they can understand what we were trying to do. The US one, because I grew up in the States, I wanted to make sure that that language was tailored to the US market. So that's why you see 2. So if you're doing advocacy inside the States, I want to suggest that you use the one that says US Trifold pamphlet so that it could be easier. And yes, we do have the constituent form available in Spanish. It's there. We have the call, the introductory call that's also been translated in Spanish. So things that we discuss here, you can help us. You can help us by reaching out to different communities. You can ensure that we can diverse our chapters as much as possible, and that this is something that you can do. You can recommend someone to join our Spanish language action team. You can email me at español@citizensclimatelobby.org, and I can connect them to our team. We do a call once a month. And we also have a WhatsApp group where we talk about what anybody was doing. Something else I want you to think about, I know my community is, anything that you want to do in the future, make sure that you do it with a good intention, that you find a time that you actually want to do, that you have the volunteer that you want to engage. Because if, you know, like anything else, if we don't put the effort, then we're not going to get the feedback that we want. You could do your research, right? I gave you census information. You can download just a general sheet so you can see the breakdown of your community, but you can also go and pull that Hispanic table out so that you can break down the group and try to see who you can find there. It is Hispanic Heritage Month, by the way. It started September 15th and it ends October 15th. You find events in your local community. Trust me, they're out there. I have seen some already in California. We've had someone from our chapter do an event in Texas. They participated in the tabling event, and I'm doing stuff here in Florida, and I'm sure you can find them across the country. So, you know, make CCL visible inside our communities, and it's a good month to want to try some of these things. And also just, you know, join us in our social stuff. Even if you don't speak Spanish, just go and press like. Press like and follow us. We are right now, we have 3 social accounts, one on Facebook, one on Twitter, and one on Instagram. Sometimes I end up translating some of the posts so that people see what we're doing.
I love that, Karina. Here is specifically Karina's email. So it's karina.ramirez@citizensclimatelobby.org. And mine is here as well. And here's the Spanish language action team's URL as well. You can just search that keyword in community. But we want to make sure that folks that are listening in later, that are on the line tonight, know how to get in touch, how to continue to stay networked, how to share learnings with each other. And again, there's a lot of other diversity outreach happening throughout the rest of the action teams. This isn't just one person's effort. Karina is by no means the only person responsible for doing this. nor should she be. And so we're trying to provide both her and I's contact, and we'd love to get you plugged in and networked and supported, regardless of your interests. But for the sake of tonight, given that we are at the top of the hour, I just wanted to close by saying thank you for all of you being on the line tonight, giving of your time to really emphasize and learn more about this essential topic that CCL can really push ourselves much further than we have and continue to grow outside of our comfort zone in. And so I hope that you found this useful, and I'll let you close it, Karina, with any other final reflection.
Again, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining in the call today, and for offering questions and comments. I think we are starting a really good conversation about how to engage diverse communities inside CCL. And I want to thank you for any work that you want to do. I am here to support you. Again, like Brett said, I'm not alone. I have a team of 12 people and more coming in. So if you don't get me, you get other people that can direct you and talk to you. Even if it's, you know, just wanted to say, hey, I'm here to say hey too. I think this is a good conversation. We're having a great conversation during Hispanic Heritage Month, which is what I love even more. So this is fantastic. I just want to see you out there and try some things that we discussed today, and let me know how it goes. I look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much,
being
guys.
here. So good to see everyone.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Karina.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Lex.
Thanks.
Cheers. Good night.